it is this like breath of fresh air, like, ah, we made it halfway, man. We're more than halfway. We're doing it. And we can see the light starting to come back, right? It starts to get a little bit more light. Even if it's only a little, it's a little more light out, and we start to see things come back. And we're still honoring that quiet inner work. And in this way, we're honoring it in this piece of purification.
Welcome to the Feminine Alchemy Podcast, where we explore the truth about the feminine, the peaceful, the wild, and the visceral. I'm your host, J.N. Berenger, joined by my co-hosts, Julie Dean Richards and Kaylee Rose. Each week, we explore the deep mysteries of the feminine and help listeners apply them to their daily lives in a practical way. Join us to unlock the hidden wisdoms your soul has been waiting for. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Feminine Alchemy. I'm J.N. Berenger. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Julie Dean Richards and Kaylee Rose. Say hi.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay. I always have to start the whole episode out with, oh my gosh, for some reason. Whatever. But today we are talking about Imbolc because I get excited every single time we're recording. I just get super excited about what we're talking about. And I go, oh my gosh, guys. Seriously, you gotta check this out. We're going to talk about Imbolc, which is part of the Wheel of the Year. So we've already had 2 episodes of this important set of holidays. And so today we're talking about our 3rd one. And we did. Okay, so Yule is the winter solstice, right? And so roughly in the Wheel of the Year, you've got like the solstice and the equinoxes, and then you've got like these in-between stages, right? So this is one of those in-between ones, and I love the in-between ones because that's the ones nobody's really talking about a ton. So, and I have something really exciting planned for today's get to know you question. Last year for Christmas, not like this past year, but the year before that, I got this game called Give Me a Sign, and it's an astrology board game. And it says on the box, it says we're going to ask you general astrology questions. Some of them are pretty straightforward, like when are Geminis born? Some of them are kind of ridiculous, and I did not know the answers to, so that's fun. So I'm going to ask you the hardest questions that I found.
This is exciting.
Because I know you don't want me to be like, all right, show me Gemini on this chart. Like that would be, if you don't know the answer to that, well, you're bad at your job, and you're not bad at yourselves. We're all better at, oh my gosh. I didn't win this game. We played this one time with my family. I did not win, and I was kind of mad about that, but also it's got a lot to do with rolling a die, and then you go around the circle. Anyways, here is one for Julie. Which city, and I'll give you multiple choice, which city is not associated with Taurus?
Oh, it's exciting. Multiple choice? Okay.
Multiple choice.
All right, here we go.
Tripoli, B, Dublin, C, Luzerne, or D, Palermo.
Is it Dublin?
No, it's Tripoli.
Oh, geez.
The whole question seems like it's like just throw a dart at the map.
I have no idea. Yeah. I don't know why they are associated with Taurus. That's interesting.
Dublin is associated with Taurus. So
I guess so.
And Palermo. I was trying to even think of like geographically, is there a line that connects those that the other one is not connected to?
Oh, well, so in geodetic astrology, which is a form of locational astrology that has to do with world events and how we see the world, there is a fixed map, but the fixed map starts as London being 00 degrees, like Britain is 00 degrees Aries. So maybe, but Aries extends farther. It goes from Britain. It goes east. So Taurus would be that middle section, right? It's going to be like Eastern Europe and stuff. So anyway, that makes zero sense.
So, okay, I'm not crazy.
They need to
you're not.
Their reasoning. Like, why are
like,
these
please
associated? Like, come on. Or
they didn't tell you why? They gave you no why. There's no why.
It. Just you're right or you're wrong.
Yeah, they're totally making it up. They've got to be.
That one was really disappointing. Yeah.
It's a sad one.
Okay, Kaylee, this is the one for you. What sign is associated with the throat and lungs?
Oh, I know.
I was gonna say Julie would know this better than me because I know very little about medical astrology, and when I have like learned about it, I'm like, wait, no, that it shouldn't be like that. So let me think about this for a second. Because I used to know throat and lungs. Why do I want to say Taurus? That's not right. It is right.
Julie, what is it?
Well, Taurus has always been over the throat. So if it says it's not Taurus is not over the throat, then it's lying to you.
It says it's Gemini.
But yeah, I was going to say, but Gemini is the lungs. Gemini is the lungs. Okay. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
That was weird. Yeah.
So it's wrong. It doesn't know what it's talking about. I mean, Gemini can. Gemini can be associated with the throat sometimes, but typically Taurus is the throat. Anyway, keep going.
What sign is this?
Sagittarius.
I had to do that one.
My brain was like in shock for a second because it's like, wait, this is not a trick question.
This is not a trick question. It's like asking, where's your nose?
Yeah, you're like, it's right here.
Yeah, are we doing something different now? Okay. What sign is known as logical and practical? Anyone can answer.
Capricorn.
A, Aries. B, Taurus. C, Virgo. Or D, Leo.
Virgo. Of those ones?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm covering my mouth now. I'm like talking too quick.
Anybody can answer. What sign is said to be highly independent adventurers?
Sag. Yeah, both of us.
100%.
I mean, Aries could be a little bit, but they're a little more like, I don't know, almost pioneering than just adventuring.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who like are on the list of the, what do they call it? The Darwin Awards.
Oh, geez. Yes.
They're so pioneering. They don't think there is danger anywhere. And then they die. Whoops.
And then they die. Watch out, Aries. Jan's got it out for you.
I do not. It's your own curiosity, and we love you for it. And initiative taking. What birthstone is associated with Sagittarius?
It's going to be December. What is Peridot? No. Is that December?
That's August.
That's August. You're right. I don't know what December's is.
So I think that they had a different set of definitions for birthstones related to specifically like the signs, which I'd like to know more about because they were not at all related to the months. So this one says turquoise. And that concludes our lightning round of do you know anything about astrology? And I will tell you, I was a little miffed about this game and how it turned out. But
I can understand that.
It was fun for a one night. But I just had to share that with you guys because it's hilarious. Anyhow.
Yeah, we should do it again sometime. It's too fun. I'm like, what else is in there? Tell me.
Box. Woo! So let's talk about Imbolc, and let's talk about things that we do for Imbolc, and then we'll talk about things that we personally have done. So generally speaking, what do people do for Imbolc and what does it look like? And of course, we're going to talk about snacks, and we'll talk about our own lived experiences with relating to this holiday. So who wants to go first?
I vote Julie because she's the most knowledgeable on this subject of the three of us.
All right. Well, so Imbolc is actually one of my most favorite holidays in the Wheel of the Year. Like people don't love it, but I love it a lot. And I think it's probably because it was the first one I really celebrated and I had like such a good time doing it. But another name for Imbolc is midwinter because it's literally the middle of winter, right? We're halfway through this winter season. We're halfway between the spring and winter or the spring equinox and the winter solstice. And so it's kind of this time of purifying. Like this is Imbolc and midwinter is where we get this idea of like spring cleaning. It's time to get, out with the old, in with the new. And the idea is that it's been dark, right? It's been getting darker, darker, darker. We have the solstice and it's the darkest. And now the sun is starting to come back. And now we know that we're like in the middle of winter. We're like, okay, we've crossed the halfway point. It's time to prepare for spring. So in order to do that, we're doing a lot of purifying. We're doing a lot of cleansing. We're getting rid of things that we don't need during this time. We're also looking forward to the sun. And this is the time when you can do some sprouting, right? Imbolc technically means in the belly. And so this is the time that the seeds are germinating in the ground, in the belly. There's stuff going on underneath the ground before you see it on top. And so this is the work we're doing inside of ourselves. We're germinating so that we can sprout when spring comes. So that is the basics of Imbolc or midwinter. It can be celebrated so many different ways, but often in earth-based practices, it is associated with the goddess Brigid. And I would love to hear what you have to say about Brigid, JN, because I know you love her.
I do. I first interacted with her like 3 years ago. Like truly for the month of February, I was doing daily chamomile infusions, which chamomile is very connected to Brigid or Brigid, I think in some ways. I loved it. The chamomile infusions every day were just so delicious. And an infusion is where you just take plant material and then you pour boiling water over it and leave it overnight. And when you make tea from chamomile, it's tasty, it's fine, it's whatever. When you make an infusion from chamomile, it changes the texture of the liquid. And it's like this wonderful, like almost viscous thing. We're already talking about snacks. I love it. But Brigid is like just very much about that fertility thing, I think, right? There's a lot of fertility protection, and just kind of, I don't know. I just loved interacting with her. I don't know. I'm like, my brain is breaking because it's like when you know somebody and you're like, they're great. They're so great. Yeah, and she is a Gaelic goddess, which we don't commonly see. Like we see them, but sometimes we forget to look at them. Like we're focused very much on the Roman and the Grecian, and sometimes the Norse. But the Gaelic goddesses and the gods aren't something that we often talk about. But Brigid is one of those big ones, and so it's like the world is waking up and we're starting to think about it, and we have a feast. So she's one of my favorites overall.
I love that. And I think that kind of leads into some of the activities that you can do to celebrate this holiday. Kaylee, do you want to talk about anything you've researched about it or anything that you know about Imbolc? And it doesn't have to be activity, it's just anything that comes to mind for you.
Yeah, so I'm not super familiar with Imbolc, so I did some reading before we started recording and some pondering, and a lot of things that came up in what I read had to do with fire, like having a fire procession, and also cleansing and protecting, like we've already talked about, clearing out your house, um, putting like blessings over your field and over your animals if you have animals. And I even saw something that was like you could make a Brigid doll and some sort of stick. I can't remember what it was called, but then you put them in your bed and it's supposed to like be connected to that fertility and that protection. And so I just really love this combination of like cleansing, cleaning, clearing, protection, fertility. Like we're prepping for some things to come. Um, and it's just, I don't know, like that spring cleaning bug bites, and like it's so refreshing to get, like, even if it's crisp cold air in your house, like opening windows and just clearing stuff out. There's a freshness to it that sometimes feels lacking at the beginning of the calendar year, where it's like, oh, it's a new year, but we just came off the high of all these winter holidays around Yule and Christmas. And now, like, it's still cold and it's still dark, and people are saying, like, hey, set some intentions, but it doesn't feel very new a lot of the time. But
Mhm.
as we move into this time of Imbolc, it does start to feel a little new, or a little bit like, oh, I'm just ready for it to be new, even if
Mm.
that freshness isn't there yet.
Yeah, I think that's really cool and such a good point. You can the stick that you're talking about, there's a cross of Brigid, and sometimes people make Brigid crosses for this holiday. There's actually in the Catholic Church that this holiday is correlated with Candlemas and Saint Brigid, right? They have a Saint Brigid who's also part of this, and Candlemas is the recognition of like that's when they took Jesus to the temple. That's the idea, is like that's when Jesus was taken to the temple and presented at the temple for the first time. So it also has this feeling of purification and getting things ready and fertility, because now we have this baby and we're fertile. I would love, something that came to mind when you were talking, Kaylee, was this idea that not we don't always do this, but this idea that now is becoming more common of prepping yourself before you have a baby, cleaning stuff out, like cleaning out your body and letting yourself become more fertile before you decide to conceive a child. And that's kind of what this reminds me of. Not that like anyone has to have conceived a child or anything, but it's just this natural part of the cycle that we recognize that, okay, something really important is about to sprout. And so this germinating phase, it's really important to clear everything out before everything can germinate and grow within us. So that's kind of what this holiday reminds me of.
Yeah, I will say I usually have a tough time in January, emotionally, physically. Like, I get a lot of high inflammation, partly because it's cold and we've got that pushed air, and then also because it's so dark. And then February 1st rolls around literally every year. February 1st rolls around and I am like thawing out. And I have this sense of just feeling like it's like, oh, the light is returning because now it's light after 5 p.m. And oh, the hope is there. And all of that like goop I was working through, now I'm that different person. I'm on the other side of that. And that February 1st, LA clockwork every year since 2011 has been the thing for me. Is like February 1st, it's happening. It's happening. Just keep going. It's almost February 1st. And then February 1st hits, and every time I just like, oh, right. I forgot that things are still moving forward. I forgot I won't be frozen forever. I forgot I won't be stuck forever. And this was a season of my life to be cocooned.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really great. And we are it is this like kind of like breath of fresh air, like, we made it halfway, man. We're more than halfway. We're doing it. And that, we can see the light starting to come back, right? It starts to get a little bit more light, even if it's only little. It's a little more light out, and we start to see things come back. And we're still honoring that quiet inner work. And in this way, we're honoring it in this piece of purification. And just so people don't know, this episode is going to drop on Imbolc, but for anyone who doesn't know, it's usually celebrated February 1st and 2nd. But I would say technically, astrologically, it's really the 5th, if we're going by the degrees of the wheel. But yes, the 1st and 2nd is Imbolc. So maybe we should talk a little bit about snacks, foods. Who wants to talk about some foods?
You know, I always love to talk about some snacks. Okay, so one of, like I said, one of my favorite things is the chamomile infusions. But there's a lot of milk involved in Imbolc. That's what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's sheep's milk or it's like the arrival of lambs, and getting milk from the lambs finally again. Those are a big piece of like celebrating milk, which I think is really interesting because it's the milk from the animals comes before we get pregnant, right? Typically humans get pregnant in the spring or actually around this time of year, right? In February. And that preparation of having lots of milk and that nourishment to the womb, the nourishment to the body before you conceive a child, like so pointed. Like this is preparation for some kind of fertility, or the conception of something new of some kind. So milk is a big deal.
Yeah. What do you think, Kaylee? Do you have any thoughts on it? It's okay if you don't.
Yeah, I like I said before, I don't know much of anything about Imbolc, but I was just like looking around on different websites and yeah, came across a lot that had to do with milk, things like oats and barley, um wild greens, eggs, honey, like all these very rich, very nourishing, but also kind of fresh in their own way, types of foods. Um, it reminds me of like the first time I had Thai food.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember what I had, but it was glorious because it felt simultaneously so grounding and so
Mm-hmm.
light. Like it didn't feel heavy in my body, but it felt so nourishing that I felt grounded. And I just kind of get the sense of that, like that's kind of an Imbolc feel. This very,
Mm-hmm.
very grounded, maybe kind of heavy, but also light, and that there's an airiness coming into things as well.
Yeah, I love all of these. I always every year for Imbolc, I always make zuppa toscana for Imbolc. And so if people don't know what that means, that's like a cream-based soup and it has like sausage in it sometimes, but I put bacon in it also, and then I it has kale in it, it has potatoes, because we're still kind of dealing with those herbs. I was like thinking a lot about seasonal foods, and I mean was just a from my searching, I was like, I think we have trouble knowing like what's in season during the winter, because usually these holidays revolve around food that is in season, right? The way our ancestors used to eat. And of course, we know root vegetables are still in season, thus like the potatoes in the soup, right? And of course, we rely heavily still on this time on at this time on animal produce, right? What they produce, like milk and honey, is a big part of it, and which I also think is an important, because this is very much like a holiday linked to a goddess, and like milk and honey is always linked to the goddess. And but we also have squashes, we have collard greens and kale and broccoli and cauliflower. Those are all in season and can be used this time of year. Onion, garlic, shallots, leeks, all those really nice spices, all that stuff that lives under the ground, which I think is interesting for Imbolc, because it's all about what's germinating under the ground, those seeds that are germinating under the ground. And there's even things like you can use celery. Of course, when we talk about fruits and we talked about some of the greens and veggies, but the fruits are all going to still be citrus fruits, right? So oranges and grapefruits and lemons and limes and blood oranges. Even pears are in season during this time. Sometimes there's late apples, but really by the time we get to February, it's not really apples anymore. There's persimmons and cranberries still, but one I really wanted to bring up, because I know Kaylee loves it so much, is pomegranates.
Mm.
This
Yes.
is the season for pomegranates. And this is what a perfect tie into this. And so I thought, Kaylee, if you could talk to us about why pomegranates are important and with this season, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and actually, before I do that, I learned something really cool about pomegranates that I did not know. I learned it just yesterday. Apparently, the pomegranate arils, so like the little, they look like seeds, and the seed inside, like the little juicy bit, is antiparasitic. So if
Mm.
you eat a bunch of pomegranate, including the seeds, I know some people will actually like chew it up and then spit out the seeds, but
Mhm.
no, you have to eat the seeds, and you can actually get rid of parasites in your body, which seems so incredibly fitting for Imbolc to be clearing out stuff that you're like, I really don't want this in my body. But aside from that, pomegranates are connected to fertility. They're also connected through the story of Hades and Persephone to this idea of going into the underworld and then coming back up to the underworld. But here's the thing, when Persephone was in the underworld, that's when she partook of the pomegranate. And it's kind of this like, oh, like technically this grows above the ground, but it's also connected to this like death and rebirth. And even like the jewel tone of the pomegranate, it's like very in the earth, these jewels. There's
Mm.
magnificent things for us in the earth. And so often we think of new life as, oh, look, the flowers have sprouted, like, or the plants have sprouted, and now the flowers are blooming. And we're like, oh, now it's new life. But in reality, none of that would have happened if there hadn't been germination under the ground. Real rebirth, real new life starts without a lot of external recognition. It happens
Mhm.
inside. And even like with pregnancy, like people don't know you're pregnant when you're first
Mhm.
pregnant. It's later on after you've told them, or they've noticed you're acting weird, or you actually start showing. And it's like, oh, hey, this person's pregnant. Like, yay, new life. But it started way before then.
Mhm.
And it's like there was this treasured knowledge way before then. And I think that happens with the earth every single year. There's this treasured knowledge, there's this beautiful something, many somethings really, if it's the whole earth, that is underground and it's waiting. And I think
Mhm.
that happens figuratively as well. And the pomegranate kind of reminds us of that, that there's so much under the surface waiting to come forward. And it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, and the pomegranate is so associated with fertility with all those seeds and bringing forth, so I love that, you connected those dots for us, and I think it's perfect. So for people looking for something to eat during Imbolc, the pomegranate is a great, also, they're delicious. I love my
Oh, yeah.
mom, she used to buy us, from Costco, a box of pomegranates every winter, just like one box because they're expensive. And we each got our own pomegranate, one whole pomegranate for ourselves. And I remember just delighting in the juice, like running down my face and like loving plucking it out and eating it. So, this is the time for the messing eating of the pomegranate and enjoying it. If you want that. Soups, of course, are always going to be in fashion during this time. You can also do nuts and seeds, pecans and chestnuts and hazelnuts are all in vogue at this time. And of course, you guys already talked about like the farro, the barley, the oats can be helpful. But there's also certain herbs that are associated with Imbolc. And sometimes we like chamomile, exactly what Jayanne referenced. Chamomile and lavender, which I think is interesting because they're both quite soothing herbs, are part of Imbolc, as well as basil, which gives you that new life. Will be important for Ostara, and so will the eggs. But angelica, which is protection and purification, laurels, milk thistle, and then snowdrop came up. And I thought that was interesting because it's like the first hope and signs of spring. So I love all of these beautiful herbs. Jan, do you have anything about any of these herbs? Have you used any of them?
Yeah, well, chamomile, lavender, of course, right? Um, Angelica is actually the biggest one I wanted to talk about because it is the herb of the angels and it's a root herb. Um, And I find that sometimes I put it in a tea or a decoction and I will consume it, but most importantly, I find it really powerful for ceremony and when I'm interacting with other realms. It's a really wonderful protector
Mm,
of the space, and especially around this time of year, I find myself drawn to it, along with some ginger, probably. Right, it's a
mm,
similar kind of flavor, kind of not quite as ginger, more like a curry flavor almost.
mm-hmm.
So it goes well with ginger. But angelica root has some really powerful antiviral properties and some really powerful, anti properties, right? Like the fungal, bacterial, viral, you name it. It's very, very protective, both in the physical realm and in the spiritual. Um, but yeah, did you learn anything about Snowdrop? Because I just found out about that too, and I have not interacted with Snowdrop myself. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's usually just, I think, used more as a like celebratory or decorative. This idea of hope. That's like the big symbolism around Snowdrop is it's like hope for the new light returning, right? And so people use it decoratively. There's also colt's foot you could use around this time. And of course, rosemary. Rosemary is like good for everything. So it will always show up. But I thought the milk thistle was appropriate because of the cleansing. It can help with your liver, and it's really good for like clearing stuff out. And then coltsfoot is often like new beginnings, prosperity. Like that's what people use it for. But it's a rarer herb, I would say. Um, there are also stones associated with Imbolc. There's one more food. Oh, there's a food I have to talk about because it's something I make every year for it. Because I make, of course, the zuppa toscana every year, and then for dessert we always make crepes. That's what we have for Imbolc. We love doing the crepes, and people make the crepes because they are in recognition of the sun, right? Like the sun is coming back, and that's what you make. And you can do Nutella on them and whatever you want on them. But I adore me a delightful crepe. I am very bad at cooking them well, but I'm getting better over the years. So that's fun for people if they want to have some crepes on Imbolc. It is quite delightful. Hey friends, it's Julie. I'm just popping in here real quick to tell you about a very special invitation we have for you. If you have been feeling deeply called to learn more about your feminine identity or to see what feminine power really is, or you're just loving the podcast, then Kaylee and I would love to invite you to join our community, Feminine Alchemist. Inside, we host live monthly women's circles, challenges, and Wheel of the Year celebrations. They are seriously so much fun. We have monthly workshops where we bring in experts to teach on anything from menstruation to mythology. You'll also get access to our library of courses about astrology, intuition techniques, sacred embodiment, and cyclical living. And most importantly, you'll be able to connect with women who are like-hearted and walking the same path as you. So if this sounds exciting to you, join today by clicking the link in the show notes or going to femininealchemist.com. That's alchemist spelled MYST. Okay, back to the episode.
Have something. So I didn't realize it until this conversation, but I make a pomegranate cheesecake that is like to die for. And as we were talking, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, pomegranates and like milk products and together it's like the perfect Imbolc dessert. Plus it's just amazing. It is so good." So, guess what I will be making in early February?
Yes, let's go. Jan, I saw you had something you wanted to say too.
No, I just said that sounds amazing. That sounds so great. I love this. I love this pomegranate cheesecake. We definitely need to do that. Yes, wonderful.
A
Wow.
hundred, 100,000%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so spring cleaning doesn't have to be just your house. Just like Julie was saying, it's common to have a spring cleaning of the body, and it's super common in the from Imbolc into spring as spring starts, because those newest greenest greens are some of the most powerfully cleansing things that we can have or consume for the body. Um, so as the dandelions come up, eating those, so great. But I don't think that's necessarily associated with Imbolc, but that idea of like that spring cleaning lends itself to the liver. So yes, that milk thistle, it's so great. So good. Yeah. Um, but it used to just naturally happen, right? Because people are eating seasonally, it would just sort of naturally happen, and people go, "Oh yes, the spring greens are coming up, and I can't wait, and it's so exciting," and they would just eat them because they're excited about it. But now we have to like think about it. We have to go, okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to consume my greens as they show up because they need to clear my liver. But that's important work to remember. It's time to clear our livers. It's time to, we've spent all winter sort of hiding or um, getting sick and getting better, right? And going through those kinds of good, bad cycles, like healing cycles. And now it's time to like complete the process and push that stuff out using these fresh greens that might be starting to pop up. And Imbolc is sort of that sign of like, hey, it's almost time to do that. So consider this.
Yeah, I love that. And things that people could work with. I like as we get into ideas. So I'm sure people are like, what are some ideas? And we've mentioned some, like the spring cleaning. But what things you could work with during this time? Some of the stones you might want to work with are like clear quartz, which is that clearing, amethyst, which can help for like healing and protection and spirituality, right? And then garnet, um, vitality and grounding. There's moonstone. There's citrine, which is really about joy and prosperity. There's obsidian and snowflake obsidian, and then peridot, which is about growth and renewal and abundance. So that's one thing. Those are some people can work with. Do you guys have any comments on any of those crystals or using them?
I love amethyst. That's probably one of my most important stones. And I love amethyst for reasons that most people don't think of. But I think that it's like the core reason why amethyst does what it does. But amethyst is a really good boundary stone. And
Mm.
the reason that it can incite intuitive capabilities is because it keeps all this stuff out. And so what I find is with when people use amethyst, however they're using it, they can't do things that are out of alignment.
Hmm.
They don't have the desire anymore. And so that's why it's often associated with like getting rid of toxic personalities around you and getting rid of like addictions. But it's really just about that powerful boundary of saying like, you're so valuable that you deserve to have what is the best for you,
Mm.
and everything else can go kick rocks, and you don't have to do all that like stuff you were doing out of alignment in order to make that happen. And so this, to me, the amethyst piece here of Imbolc is again about that fire, that cleansing of like, get that stuff out of your life that is not serving you and reconnect with what's important, which is that intuitive, that divine capability.
For sure. Any thoughts you have, Kaylee?
I just have always loved amethyst. I mean, it's my birthstone. I was born in February, and like even before I knew anything about stones, I just felt very, very drawn to it. And now knowing what I know, and with everything that Jan said, it's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense why that would be a stone that I need in my life. with all
Mm.
my Piscean energy. Um, and snowflake obsidian. That's one that I have
Mm.
always been drawn to my whole life as well. And I don't know, I just love, in a way, it almost looks celebratory. It's like there's these little fireworks on the stone, and then there's the dark and the light. There's white and there's black, and there's kind of this combination of clearing and protecting.
Mm.
Um, and so I love that amethyst and snowflake obsidian are both associated with this particular holiday.
Oh yeah, I love both of those. I love that. And I want to do more work. I have a giant amethyst that I love that is like on my wall. And for people like thinking about this, like you don't have to run out and buy like a bunch of stones, like one or two connect with you, a small one or a big one, it doesn't really matter. Whatever calls to you is enough. And we talk about making sacred spaces or altars. So, like, if people don't know what altars are, it's just a sacred space. It's a space where you put things to remind you of what you're focusing on, right? Like to help you refocus. And that's what it's for. It's a sacred place. And so some things that people could do is put some of these stones on that altar. You could also put reminders that like the spring is coming or cleaning. Maybe colors like red can be really helpful because this is a fire festival. Putting a candle out on there, making Brigid's cross. Some people really enjoy that. Cleaning your home. I will tell you all my. Is it okay if I tell like my specific Imbolc? Because I do it every year. I do like the same thing. I have a groove and I love it so much. So what will happen for me is 2 weeks before Imbolc, I will start cleaning my house out and I will do it like room by room and I will clean it out physically, but also spiritually. I will clean out my room. And if people don't know how to do like cleaning, it can be as simple as imagining like a white light or like coming out of your broom, right? Like washing away everything or like that there's energy washing away stuff. You can also like this might be foreign to some people, but you can also like bless your cleaning supplies if you want to. Like get some water and some vinegar and a couple essential oils, drop it in and just ask it, just say like my intention, put some intention into it. My intention is that you clean my house, right? You can do that. You can also wash. Salt is really purifying. And so you can wash with salt and water over your doorways to make protection. You can imagine cleansing your house with light, all kinds of things like that. So I do that 2 weeks before. And then on the first, we have like our special family thing that we do together. And I've like never talked about this publicly before, but it's like so like dear to my heart. But we don't make the kids go all the way outside because usually it's too cold. But generally would like make them start at the front door. But once we've cleaned everything, I have a bowl of water and I wash each of their feet. And so I wash my kids' feet and I tell them right when I wash their feet, you're coming into a new home, like it's time to cleanse. And I say some things to them, and then the way we do it is we go behind a curtain, so then they get to pass through that curtain. And so they, after I wash their feet, they pass through the curtain and then they come into the living room, and then we all go into the living room together and we all sometimes we'll do like some energy clearing. If they're like restless, we'll like let them be. And then we do like a dedicatory prayer of our house, like we rededicate our home for the whole year and like bring in like that spirit. So that's my really special spiritual thing that we do. We light a candle, we make a sacred circle, we do all the things, all the woo things and that. And then the next day on the second is the party day. So we have a big party. We invite lots of friends. We make flower crowns for it. Of course, that's like my favorite thing. And we eat zuppa toscana. We make crepes. And we have a bonfire. And we burn some intentions, and we just have a good old ruckus time. So this is my other holiday that I will often only have candles, except sometimes in the kitchen I will need more than one candle. But we'll usually do this all by candlelight, and it just sets the tone and the mood, and we dance to songs together. And so, yeah, that's what we do on Imbolc. We have a rockin' good time.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that, especially that part of it that is so special and so sacred to you and to your family.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I love it. I love it. So if anyone wants to celebrate Imbolc, those are some ideas for things that you can do and ways you can bring that energy into your home. I love it. I love it. I love it. So is there anything that anyone wants to say about Imbolc before we sign off?
I think we've said, yeah. Of course you don't have to have lots of people. Like, you don't have to have a big party if you don't want to. You can do it simply. You could do a meditation. You could do a ritual bath is perfect for this time of the year. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be your small self, but I just think, celebrate. Using mindfulness is like what this holiday is all about. Just letting go of those things, purifying and germinating, and just know good things are on the horizon. Like, that's what Imbolc is all about. Like, good things are coming.
Remember the hope. I love it. Well, thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a great day, and happy Imbolc. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening and share with someone you know. See you next week.